Hey everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. I am Hans Fernando, and I am here to show you the way through Turtle Rock Dungeon, our second to last dungeon. And there's no turtles in this dungeon. You think they could use the terrapins from the first dungeon, but they didn't. There is platforms, though. So yeah, the Cadence of Mario can make platforms on these little question marks, and that is one of the major mechanics of this dungeon. Basically, the direction you look is the direction that the platform moves. Now, if I remember correctly, there's one place where this is very, annoying and tedious. There's one place where this, moving direction thing and thinking fast can be annoying. For the most part, it's not too bad right here. Like, for example, you just have to light these torches, and that's, not too difficult to handle for the most part. But yeah, the mechanic is, I said the Cadence of Mario wasn't used much. It's not only used in terms of making blocks, but it is used, for this platform segment, for moving platforms. It's used quite a bit in this dungeon. Though this is the only dungeon that they use it. Granted, we only have 2 dungeons left. But this dungeon isn't really all that memorable, actually. It's actually a very... Not that it's not memorable, it's just... I mean, A, it's not all that difficult. You would think it would be being, like, one of the last dungeons. It's more or less just, I don't know, it's pretty straightforward. It's not as tedious as, the Ice Dungeon can be, or, definitely, I feel, for me, Skull Woods can be very tedious. This dungeon's not too bad. It's a cool dungeon, though. And after we beat it, we'll finally get Zelda back, who we've, haven't seen since... Technically, we haven't seen her since the beginning of the game. Since, well, no, technically we saw her in her bed, or in a bed, when she was being cast in the Dark World by Agarangam, whatever his name is. But other than that, we haven't seen her for a while. So, one thing I saw recently, there was this review done for the Star Wars prequels. And basically they were critiquing why they were bad, and they were really in-depth and really good prequels. Prequels. They were really in-depth and really good reviews. It was only the first one, and there was one for episode 2. The first one was the one I'm gonna be referring to. Though I will admit, if you watch them, and maybe I'll provide a link if I remember. If I don't remember me, and I'll probably provide a link. If you do watch them, he does a lot of creepy jokes with, like, very, odd, strange jokes that don't really make, like, he tries to, like, that he's some deranged murderer has women in his basement, and I'm like, dude, don't do that. You're really great at doing the reviews. There's no reason for you to have those jokes. Some of the jokes especially in his Attack at the Clones review, he tones them down and does a better job working at it, but they're very, very strange. In the Phantom Menace. Plus, he does, I don't know if it's just a voice, if it's just his voice and he just sounds that way, or if he's doing a voice, but he has a strange voice that, I don't mind. I know one of my friends who actually provided me the link said it was kind of odd. But yeah, a lot of the stuff he says is actually very good. And I'm not going to spend time, really, I'm going to focus on one aspect of what he said, which was characterization. So basically what he did was he took, he mentioned how one of Phantom Menace, the Star Wars prequel, Phantom Menace, how one of its biggest issues was the sheer fact that, hello, Chain Chomps, what are you doing here? Go back to the Mushroom Kingdom where you belong. Yeah, oddly enough, Chain Chomps are used quite a bit in the Zelda franchise. More so, did I mention this? I almost feel like I mentioned this before. And if I did, I don't think we've seen Chain Chomps. I think this is the first time. If we've seen them before, though, I'm going to repeat myself. Chain Chomps are actually used quite a bit in the Zelda franchise. More so than, Link's Awakening has... Nah, maybe I didn't. I think actually, if anything, I said it in Super Paper Mario. Which, if I did... Okay, if I did, I just forgot about it. Which, Actually, I'm almost thinking it's the video that goes up before this, which I recorded before this video. But yeah, change-ups are used quite a bit in the Zelda series. I'm not going to go any more than that, though, because I think I actually did say that. Anyway, so he went on how characterization is one of the weaknesses of actually the major weakness of Phantom Menace. And he had people talk, give reasons as to why, you know, the original... Oh, and by the way, the review is 70 minutes long, so if you're not, you know, just for those who don't want to watch it because it's so long. Then again, if you're watching all of these Link to the Past videos, you'll probably have no problem with watching a 70-minute review. But he went on how, you know, in the original Star Wars, all the characters had good characterization. He had people describe some Star Wars characters by just by their personality and not by, like, you know, their clothing or their appearance. You know, if you were talking to someone who never saw Star Wars, describe this person or this character to them. So, you know, one of the first ones he said was Han Solo. Well, Han Solo is a rogue. He's one girl said dashing and handsome, and, you know, and I'm not gonna go on and on about how sexalicious he is, but you know, how he's a rogue, he's you know, badass, you know, some of the stuff that he is, and you know, I can go on and on about how he is too. I know his character, but you know, you get my point. He has a lot of characterization. He has a lot of in-depth personality. And then he said Qui-Gon Jinn from Phantom Menace, and he doesn't have much of a personality. You can say, like, you know, very bland, basic personality, but he's a very flat character. And, you know, if you know literary terms, there are flat characters and round characters. And, you know, you're gonna have flat characters in a story. You know, they're important as, you know, round characters. But if your entire cast is made of flat characters, it's gonna be a very bland story, because, you know, you don't have anyone to relate to. And part of the problem with, you know, as he said also, there's no protagonist in Phantom Menace. Really, there's not really anyone for us to relate to, no main character. But yeah, he said Qui-Gon Jinn, and he said C-3PO, who also has a personality. He's, you know, very prissy, very, you know, a lot of the things that, again, prissy, I can't remember off my top of the head stuff they said, but he's a very, you know, a prissy robot, a very neurotic. He's very uptight, kind of uptight. He's also very, you know, some of the stuff, I can't remember what they said, but yeah, he has a personality and a story. I know I'm not making a good case for it, but that's partly because I'm trying to remember what they said, and I can't. Here we also actually have some pipes here that we can go through, which are pretty cool. It's kind of a, not really that big of a mechanic, it's just kind of sparsely used, but it's a cool mechanic in general for this dungeon. But then he said Queen Amidala, and again, no one really could give any personality because she really doesn't have much of one. So, you know, characterization, you got me thinking, you know, think about characters from the Zelda franchise. Now, like, for example, in this game, and again, this goes back on the whole 3D versus 2D thing, and it goes to the fact that, like, for example, sprites, well, they can show, well, they sometimes can. A lot of times they don't have any emotion, they're very just static. And again, they're also very distant. They don't have the, you know, three-dimensional, they don't have the perspective, they don't immerse us. When we see a 3D rendered character, we see them as being, you know, being more real, and we expect them to be more like a real human. And yeah, if you use the mirror here, we can go into this room. And this is how you get the last heart piece of the game. But yeah, you know, with the sprites though, sprites aren't nearly as, they're more distant feeling to us because they're very cold looking. They're very just flat and static, and they don't show much emotion. So, you know, in most games, sprites don't get us. We don't feel the need for emotional attachment, and therefore characterization isn't as big a deal for sprites. That's why I think partly story is not nearly as big a deal for, you know, for 2D, like I said on the other day, or I said in a previous episode. But like Flute Boy, for example. Flute Boy has no characterization. You know what? But I said, of course, you know, Flute Boy, you know, made me care for him. Well, I'm not caring for Flute Boy. You know, Flute Boy is just a boy. He has no personality. He's just a random boy. I care about the situation he got in and the fact that I sympathize with that situation and how it sucks. But I don't sympathize with him as a person because he's not a person. He's just he doesn't exist. He's just an abstract thing. And here we have the Mirror Shield, which, I don't know, it looks more gold than it does a mirror shield, but it can reflect lasers, so that's why it's, you know, the mirror shield. It's also the first, I think it's the first mirror shield in the game, or in any Zelda game, rather. a lot of these items that were presented in Link to the Past were used in later Zelda games, like the Mirror Shield, Hook Shot, Master Sword in general. This is the first game with the Master Sword. So yeah, Flute Boy has no personality. Then we go into like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. I go into those ones because I feel like A Link to the Past really, Ocarina of Time is really based off, really kind of followed through with A Link to the Past. Now, again, you can say that with any of the Zelda games, but definitely with, I think, Ocarina of Time definitely drew a lot of influence from A Link to the Past, more so than any other game. Well, maybe not more so, but either way, I'm going to talk about them because I can. So, with Ocarina of Time, you could do... I think the best to do that test on would be Navi and Tattle. Let's look at Navi. Or let's look at Tattle, actually, first. Tattle from Majora's Mask is very... You know, she's not doing this because of... She's not helping out Link because she wants to. She's doing it kind of because she has to, but also because, you know, she just fell in... She doesn't like Link, you know, at first. And even at the end, she doesn't really like Link. She's more of just... You know, they're just like... Well, you need my help, and I need your help, so I'm just gonna follow you. That's it. They're not, like... You know, actually, at the end, there's a whole comment about her saying, well, go home now, we have a festival to attend. It's like, you know, dude, we travel the entire world together. You would think you would invite me to your festival, but no, she doesn't. And you might think that's, like, just a mistaken comment, but I almost feel, no, it was done purposeful, that Tattle has really no emotional attachment to Link, really. He's just a guy who she was working with, and a lot of her comments are sarcastic. She has a very sarcastic tone to them. Whenever you hook onto an enemy, she'll, and you want to find information, she'll be like, what, you don't know what this is? And she's, you know, she's very, snarky, and again, she's, you know, not necessarily someone you like, though. You know, you kind of don't like her. It's like, you need to work with her. She doesn't like you, and, you know, she apologized at one point for what she did, but it's more of like, you could either see it as two things. Either as, I'm being remorseful and I feel bad for what I did, or, well, you know, now that we're traveling together for this long, I do feel bad for what I did, but, like, more just apologizing so there's no awkward conversation. Or she maybe feel bad for what she did, but she doesn't, again, care that much about Link. And yeah, here's the section I was thinking of. It's in the dark, and it's kind of hard to think on your feet to get to where you need to go. So yeah, Tattle has quite a bit of personality, more so than, you know, she has a lot of the characters in Majora's Mask. She has quite a bit of personality and a lot of characterization, and it makes you, you know, I mean, that's, you know, how you think about villains. If your villain's a generic, you know, generic villain type, like Ganondorf is in Ocarina of Time, you don't really see much of a reason to dislike him or reason to, you know, care about him. Whereas, you know, like with Skull Kid has a little bit more personality, and you feel for him because he's a sympathetic villain, but also you feel, you just pure hatred for Majora's Mask, because he does things to, he ruins Kefei and Anju's life, right? But why? For no real reason, he just does it. And, you know, why do you get mad at him, but I don't get mad at Ganondorf for the things he did in Ocarina of Time? Because Kefei and Anju have personality, and they feel like real people. So when you see them being tormented, it really, you know, it hurts you. It touches you. But yeah, like you go in, okay, so the characters in Majora's Mask have, you know, quite a bit of personality, as I said. You go into Ocarina of Time, Navi has absolutely none. You could say annoying, but that's not really more of a character trait. It's more, well, I guess it's a character trait, but it's not really that much of a personality trait. She's just annoying. That's it. And she's doing what she's doing because the Deku Tree told her to, and that's about it. She doesn't really have much else personality. In fact, there's, you know, at the end, she leaves, and the game, like, presents it as, you know, you should care for her. But why? She's just, you know, I have no reason to care for her. She's just a random fairy. She's just basically a gameplay tool. And again, the game was made to, or I don't know if I said this yet, but Ocarina of Time's main thing was getting gameplay to work in 3D. Its main focus at the time was to, you know, make a good game. And then with Majora's Mask, they're like, okay, we have a good engine. Let's take this engine and make, you know, get more story into it, like they did with what they did with Majora's Mask. And so for that fact, I can't really fault Ocarina of Time all that much because its focus was never to make a great story. Though, again, the story is fine, it's really the characterization that I feel is pretty weak in it. And I'm not bad-mouthing it, I'm just using it as an example of why, you know, characterization can just improve the story quite a bit. But, okay, and here's another thing. Gorons. The Gorons in Majora's Mask, they're very... I think they have more emotion in terms of their faces, too, but they're very, you know, Darmania. I think his name's Darmania. The Goron in Majora's Mask who's the leader, who died. He doesn't appear for all that long, yet in that short period of time, you already get a good feel of his emotions and his personality, and you feel for him. You feel for him and what has happened, you feel for the situation, kind of with, you know, Flute Boy, you feel for the situation. And you could say, well, Mega, Flute Boy had no emotions, why do you feel for... Well, I just feel for the situation in general. You know, you can't really... There's no depiction of whether or not they're sad or angry, so in that sense, I usually just take the default of being sad for, the Flute Boy scenario. But, with the whole, Majora's Mask, the Gorons, they're very sad. You see the son crying for his father, you know, there's an array of emotions. Go to the Gorons in, Ocarina of Time. When you free them from their cages in the Fire Temple, they have really huge grins on their faces, and they're like, thanks for saving me, and they walk out. They could have either said something like, wow, I was really scared, or something like that. They just walk out, they have absolutely no, you know, emotion to them. They're, you know, and the thing is, that goes for the entire takeover of Hyrule for Ganondorf. The entire, you know, you establish that there's some things wrong when you're a kid, like with the Gorons and stuff. For the most part, things are okay. When you go to the Temple of Time, you get out and it's like, whoa, everything's really dark. The entire marketplace is destroyed, and then you leave the marketplace and it's like, wow, things are basically the same. And you go to like Characterization Village, and you don't see anyone in terror, you don't see anyone depressed, or you don't see any emotion. And also the music affects this too. When you go into a new area in Majora's Mask that's troubled, the music changes, and that does affect your emotion. They don't do this in Ocarina of Time. They don't do this with, you know, any of the characters seem no different than, they don't seem to really be upset about what's going on. They just seem to just be like, it sucks, but they don't give us reason to. Hello, Trinexx. This is Trinexx. You need the Ice Rod and the Fire Rod to beat him. I think you do. Maybe there's another way, an alternate way. But you use the Ice Rod. You can just keep using the Ice Rod, or you can use the Ice Rod and then attack his head. So yeah, you basically use the Ice Rod for the fire head side of his head, and you use the Fire Rod for the blue side. But yeah, that's the thing is, they make it out to be very, you know, sad, and they imply that Ganondorf has ruined people's lives, but they don't really, you know, give any justification as to, you know, they say Ganondorf is ruining people's lives, and then they don't have any proof as to how he is doing it, because everyone seems kind of fine. And here you attack his glowing ball. Trinexx is actually pretty interesting, though. He's kind of, you know, a bland villain, honestly. Well, not really a bland villain, but it's just kind of random. He's cool though, and I guess he's the turtle of Turtle Rock. He's not really a turtle. But yeah, I would go on. But basically, the thing is with characterization, it helps improve the story, and this is why when I say Ocarina of Time has weak characters, you know, I'm basically saying Ocarina of Time's characters. Ocarina of Time has a story that is presented to make you care about the characters, and yet the characters have give no reason with the characters have no reason for me to care for them, because they have the same characterization as this game, which, you know, I feel, and again, part of it is the 3D game, but thank you, Zelda. I am the legendary hero. I wish I could talk more about that, but yeah, I'm running out of time for that, so I hope you enjoyed that little rant of sorts. Ganon's waiting in the tower, and they will allow us to enter it. But if he stays in the closed space of this world, you can find him wherever he runs. Alright. The Tower of Ganon. We will use our combined powers to break the barrier. Let's return peace to the country. Okay, next time we will be heading to the Tower of Ganon. I have been MakerFreak400, and I am reminding you to love thy goat.